go. 8. 1 through 14. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the livestock that were with him in the ark. And God made a wind blow over the earth, and the water subsided. The fountains of the deep and the windows of the heavens were closed. The rain from the heavens was restrained, and the waters receded from the earth continually. At the end of the 150 days, the waters had abated. In the 7th month, the 7th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountain of Ararat, which we have to talk about. And the waters continued to abate in the 10th month, and the first day of the month, and the tops of the mountains were seen. At the end of the 40 days, Noah opened the windows of the ark that he had made and sent forth a raven. It went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. And then he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters had subsided from the face of the ground. But the dove found no place to set their foot, and she returned to him in the ark, for the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took her and brought her into the ark with him. He waited another 7 days, and again he sent forth a dove out from the ark. And the dove came back to him in the evening, and behold, in her mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had subsided from the earth. Then he waited another 7 days and sent forth the dove, and he did not return to him any more. In the 600 of the first year, in the first month of the first day of the month, the waters were dried up from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. In the 2nd month of the 27th day of the month, the earth had dried out. All right, let's stop right there. A turning point. Divine remembrance is not reconciliation, but faithful attention. So is that weird again? We're doing the anthropomorphic thing, right? Trying to explain something about God in human terms, even though he's not human. So God remembered. What does that mean? Does anybody feel weird about that? God remembered, so he like forgotten. Oh, shoot, that's right. That was on that ark. Dang it. Got to go deal with that. God never forgets his people, even when the world feels silent or submerged, right? If you've been a Christian for any amount of time, you have, and you still will experience times of like, wow, I just feel like God's just like dealing with everybody else. Like, I feel nothing, I'm hearing nothing, it's dry. But he hasn't forgotten, right? Well, yeah, could you imagine, I think through this too, the amount of patience that, even if he wasn't patient at first, he definitely gained some patience with this process, right? Yeah, I think just over a year of just dealing. You have to feed the animals, we have to eat, we're living life on this boat. Something really crazy just went down. And imagine the visuals that would have taken place, even just seeing the world start to flood, and then the ark gets lifted up, and you're just like, whoa, what is going on right now? Well, yeah, but we get that picture over and over again all the way until Jesus. This is why we always talk about, or even New Testament talks about, Noah being the lesser Jesus, Moses being the lesser Jesus. These are all foreshadowings, these are all pictures, these are all, right, shadows of what's to come. And then Jesus comes, it's like, oh, there's the perfect one promised, with no sin, no defilement. He's not going to end up being unfaithful and ridiculous like everybody else has been. Jesus, he's the only one, It's always pointing to him. He is the point always. The waters begin to recede slowly, not instantly. Noah sends out a raven and a dove, signs of testing and waiting. Faith requires patience. God's deliverance comes in stages. The ark rests before the earth is dry. Waiting is part of obedience. The delay refines Noah's faith, just as waiting seasons refine ours. It's funny that the symbol of hope, often uses for churches and just Christian things, is a dove with a little, fig leaf in its mouth. Mm-hmm. But like Noah viewed that as, no, that's still God's wrath on the earth, still prevalent. Mm-hmm. It's when the absence of the dove, that's the symbol of peace and hope and a future. Sometimes God's remembering doesn't look like immediate rescue, it looks like slow restoration. Recovery and sanctification take time. Rushing the process can lead us back into the flood. God's silence is not absence, it's preparation for the next step. Oh yeah, the mountain of Ararat. Have we heard about the Noah's Ark being found? Heard about all that? Because before it was they knew that there was something up there that could potentially be it. But for years, it was like, we just don't know for sure. And so, some Christians jumping on it too quickly, there's just, being rightly skeptical, because as Christians, when we jump on every, the Shroud of Turin and all this stuff, it's like, and then it proves to be like, not real or false. It's like, see, Christians are so gullible. And so we always want to be careful with the things that we just want to claim as real. But I guess now, technically, it's confirmed as being Noah's Ark is on the mountain of Ararat, right where it said it was going to be. And they've, with their, they do these, this infrared or whatever, they can scan it and literally see how it's like, the compartments and the 3 stories. And they know now, oh, wow, they found Noah's Ark. What a cool thing, again, yet to be, confirmed that the Bible is authoritative. But again, remember, God could come down and say, hey, yes, I'm real, follow me. And people will be like, whoa, and then give it a couple months and they'll be right back to their old routines. That's the human heart. God's command, go out of the ark, 8:15 through 17. Then God said to Noah, go from the ark, right? He invited him in. Now he's saying, time to go out. You and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you, all flesh, birds and animals and creepy things, and everything that creeps on the earth. And they will swarm, that they swarm on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. At that point, it'd be like, God, you brought them all here. Can't you just tell them to get off? Come on, we've been dealing with them for a year. Go, everybody go. Out of the ark. God ends the confinement and commands Noah to repopulate and renew creation. The same God who says enter now says go out. Seasons change under his direction. A new world. They stepped on a new. I wonder if they knew the gravity of what just went down. They're literally stepping onto a new planet, basically. 20 through 21. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. So another reason for having more animals. I had also just heard that they found that altar right next to the Noah's Ark on the mountain of Ararat, and it has all the proper carvings that should have that follows the story, that follows honoring God after this catastrophic flood, which is pretty amazing. 21. And when the Lord smelled pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of man, for the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again strike down every living creature as I have done. Noah builds an altar and burnt offerings and for thanksgiving. True deliverance leads to worship, not self-congratulation, right? It could have been real easy to be like, look what I just did. I saved my family. Look at this magnificent boat, we can vacation on. It's pride is a real easy thing. But it should lead to worshiping God. Noah responded right, at least at this point, because things get ugly fast, of course. The aroma of sacrifice pleases God, symbolic of Christ's perfect offering. Somebody go to Ephesians 5:2. So there's something about the aroma of the sacrifices. Now, I don't think God is actually leaning over and be like, oh, it smells so good. But it's the obedience of it. It is the sacrifice, because that sacrifice means he has reconciliation with his children that he loves. It's like the whole point of all this is to bring us back to himself. So it's very pleasing for him to see us obeying like that. The different theories of sons of God, fallen angels mating with women, right? That's wild. And so people want to resort it to, we talked about the other theories, right? It was just, it wasn't divine. It was just men of, royalty, or it was other things. It wasn't fallen angels. But when we start asking those kind of questions or start pondering the things of starting over again, men are always evil anyways. Yeah. So it's like, okay, we see it now. We are in the days of Noah again. So why would he start all over again when just everything's just going to be bad again as we see it now? Exactly. So something else was going on in the world. There's 1 billion people, either completely their genes and their very image of God completely defiled, and everyone else following in their footsteps of the kinds of evil that they were committing. Right? It's much different than just hey, we're just evil and prideful and we want to do bad things and we want to deny God and we want to be disobedient. That's very different than the kinds of things that were going on. That's, that kind of stuff is more proof that, okay, there was something else happening. The very image of God being defiled. Now, what's funny about this, or not funny, but interesting, is it talks about, I remember the verse, but in chapter 5, Nephilim, defile the image of God in those days and also afterwards. Okay, meaning that Nephilim gene is still here. How? I'm actually asking, how possibly could that Nephilim gene survived the destroying of the world? Let's get some theories. I think Noah's sons' wives had some Nephilim gene in them.
So it starts again.
Yeah. But it's not going to be rampant. It's not going to be the entire world being defiled in this way. But which also means that there's some people in the world today that have some remnants of a Nephilim gene in them, which is kind of freaky. And I'd be curious to know, like, are there any of God's chosen people, that have that Nephilim gene, or is that just completely, no, that's this, you're out,
What exactly is a Nephilim?
Nephilim meaning like you still have a descendant of fallen angels in your bloodline, which I think could be
if you read Book of Enoch, I don't think so.
Yeah. All right. The first response to God's deliverance should always be worship. Renewal isn't about returning to old. It's about walking in God's new rhythm. Our gratitude becomes the altar where transformation continues. We don't have to build altars anymore, right? We just respond with a heart of saying, hey, this is your life, God. You've given me this life. This is yours. What do you want from me? Let's do a little contrast real fast of Old Testament reality to gospel fulfillment. So the ark, Christ himself, our refuge from judgment. John 10:9. I'm only going to throw out these verses for the video if anybody wants to actually go back and read them. Old Testament reality, the flood, God's wrath against sin, Romans 1:18. The dove, the Holy Spirit who confirms peace and new life, Matthew 3:16. The altar, the cross, the ultimate sacrifice pleasing to God, Ephesians 5:2. The new earth, or the new creation in Christ, 2 Corinthians 5:17. Verse 22, while the earth remains steadfast, the harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall cease. Okay. Shall not cease. This is another theory that I found very interesting. So not only was post-flood pre-flood a different world, but I don't think there were seasons. There's a theory that says that, no, it was just perfect temperature, the same all the time. And now there's going to be seasons. Like these are the kind of verses that point to that. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. So I think there again, it was just a totally different world. Now we have the Arctic. Oh, and there's also they think that's when the world tilted too. Like it wasn't tilted before. That's what gives us seasons. That science knows that because we're tilted on its axis. That's what gives us the seasons that we have. And so we think pre-flood, the world was completely straight, if you will, and there were no seasons. So just a lot of, we're talking like, so even in that, the idea of the whole, like, okay, well, where does the ice age fit into all this stuff? It's like, well, that's, again, I think something, I don't know, I think within that year of this world being underwater and the amount of pressure and, things that had happened, there was just a lot of stuff that science is trying to explain in the absence of God. Just to not, I don't want to talk about the Bible. I just need to figure out what happened when we're finding these fossils and fish fossils on the top of mountains. We have to figure out something. But yeah, I think that it changed everything. Yeah, and it's cool. I like giving those New Testament verses because when they're pointing back to the Old Testament, they're saying like, this is what we believe. This is our authority. This is our truth that we're basing all of our new truths on you from Christ, but our foundation is the Old Testament, which is cool. There is no contradictions. We're talking thousands of years of cultures and languages and people groups all saying the same thing with the same point. Like, yeah, that's not possible. We can't even get 10 people in a room to agree on something, let alone, thousands of years over across culture of time, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John is the story of Jesus from 4 different perspectives, right? Written eyewitness accounts pretty much. And then he dies and raises and goes to heaven. And then Acts is the starting of the church. That's the point of Christ coming, right? This whole like personal Lord and Savior, we need to watch that kind of language because it's like, no, Jesus came and died for his bride. And that is the church as a whole. This is why we gather. We don't go to church. We come and gather as the church, okay? And so after Acts, the church is born, and then it's time right? Every believer, every apostle, every disciple is now foot to the ground. We need to start telling people about Jesus because we want people to come to the saving faith, because this is the only saving faith, or this is the only salvation that there is offered through Jesus. And so that's what the whole point of the church. It's not for us to come and feel warm and fuzzy and good about what we believe in. And, it's like, no, we come to be fueled with wisdom and energy and correction when we need it, and encouragement to go out and be like, dark world, there's a light out there. Come and see and taste that the Lord is good. No, so this is what's awesome is like, okay, so again, we're just at the very, very beginning. Remember, Genesis literally means the beginning, and this is what we're getting, the firsts of all the things. But quickly now, they're going to start getting the prophecies of a coming Messiah. And so, and of course, in our human pride and minute understanding, they continually get it wrong, and they think that so-and-so is the Messiah, or this is going to be the same, right? And so we'll see those follow-ups all the time too. But yeah, it's prophesied, and that's one of the greatest things that gives this book the authority, is the prophecies from Old Testament that are fulfilled in the New Testament are not possible without the divine intervention of God himself. Because we're talking about, it's like from names to places to events in very detailed, 1,500 years later, prophesied, completely fulfilled to perfection in the New Testament. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, God's at work.